The 1980s, that exciting decade between the periods of social activism and self-loathing grunge. Back when brand new BMWs sold for $12,000 and hard rock and heavy metal were the dominant music genres. When it was normal to walk by someone wearing neon-colored parachute pants, rocking a hairstyle that added another 10 inches to their height. The 1980s are a memorable decade in the United States history because of its social advancements as well as its overall outrageousness. Fashion in the 1980s was very different than what it is today. Many new trends emerged during this decade, such as shoulder pads, miniskirts, leg warmers which were often paired with leggings, large earrings, parachute pants, members-only jackets, jelly shoes, lots of lace, and neon colors. Hairstyles changed and became more elaborate and big compared to their previous decades, which were typically spiky or very curly. Women also complemented their large hairstyles with large and colorful scrunchies. Celebrities such as Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Princess Diana influenced fashion, and so did popular movies like Flashdance and the soap opera Dynasty. The 80s fitness craze made sportswear and leggings, leg warmers, and headbands popular, with help from Olivia Newton-John's song, Let's Get Physical. Values and culture changed drastically in this decade. Cable television became a standard in most households, with channels such as MTV becoming extremely popular and influential on society. VCRs, or video cassette recorders, allowed Americans to record television shows and watch them whenever they wanted, giving them the flexibility TV didn't used to have. The product which introduced the greatest change in the 1980s was probably the personal computer. It allowed for the management of personal finances, quick word processing, and desktop publishing from the home, and businesses could manage their companies from one small machine, which was much more organized. The 1980s brought an end to the hippie era and higher tolerance for colored people. In music, pop, dance, and new wave emerged, and disco fell out of popularity. Rock stayed extremely popular along with R&B, hip-hop, and urban music, with rap music becoming successful later on in the decade. Michael Jackson became the most successful artist in R&B history with his best-selling album Thriller. The music video to the song Thriller paved the path in music for African American performers, since Jackson was an African American whose music video was loved by all, and stayed in the top charts for a very long time. Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, Bruce Springsteen, and Stevie Nicks were all also popular during the time period. MTV was launched on August 1, 1981, with its first music video shown being Video Killed the Radio Star. Concerts in the 1980s were very similar to what they are today, minus the fluff, or the flashy lights and electric sounds. Basically, there was less behind-the-scenes work and more focus on the music. There were no fake instruments and rarely lip-syncing, the performances being more of a what you see is what you get type compared to the concerts of today. At the time, Shea Stadium was built for the Mets and the Yankees played at Yankee Stadium. However, during this decade, the New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner began campaigning for the building of a new stadium, claiming that the original stadium was unsafe, even though such statements could discourage attendance at his own team's games. Popular athletes of the decade included Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and Joe Montana. Not only did video cassettes come out during this decade, but the first Movieplex theater opened in the 80s, making drive-in theaters less popular than they previously were. Actors such as Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Michael J. Fox, Eddie Murphy, and Tom Cruise were very popular. TV shows that were well watched were The A-Team, Golden Girls, The Simpsons, MASH, Falcon Crest, and Family Matters. People also kept busy by playing arcade games like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, and Nintendo. They also played board games like Pictionary and Boggle, and tried solving the famous Rubik's Cube. The generation of the 1980s very much enjoyed the outdoors, and played with the neighborhood kids, as they would much prefer riding a bike and playing outside than sitting on a couch watching TV. There were many monumental inventions during the 1980s. Advancements in vaccines and other medication helped solve many issues Americans face in the medical world. The artificial heart was created in 1982 and became a permanent heart transplant instead of a stopgap measure. The nicotine patch, invented in 1984, helped many to quit smoking as cigarettes became increasingly notorious for their health risks. In 1988, the abortion pill began to be distributed, giving women a feeling of safety in case an emergency occurred, and it was less expensive than an actual abortion. Prozac helped many Americans who dealt with clinical depression, and also began to be distributed in 1988. Soft contact lenses were more air permeable and comfortable. Disposable contact lenses were much less expensive than the old ones, which would have been like investing in a pair of actual glasses. The 1980s also experienced a period of technological growth. starting with the Space Shuttle, launched in 1981, which allowed Americans to learn more about space. Mac was the first personal computer to feature a graphics-based user interface in 1984, although the first personal computer was created in 1981 by Microsoft. CD-ROM and compact discs took up much less space and helped influence the jumpstart of the computer industry during 1984. Also in 1984, DNA fingerprinting was perfected to help with tracing back the linkage between generations of families and also with criminal investigations. Fuji introduced the first disposable camera in 1986, allowing Americans to purchase a camera without the heavy investment. HDTV was created in 1989 and went far beyond viewer enjoyment and highly affected the television manufacturing market and the semiconductor industry. There was a deep recession in the early 80s through 1982. It was the worst recession in United States history since the Great Depression. Bank bankruptcies rose to 50% and the government revenues fell and unemployment rates soared, and so did federal spending and the federal budget. Federal receipts grew to 60% and outlays grew to 53%, and the country experienced a regressive tax regime. However, in 1983, inflation eased below 5% and the economy rebounded, bringing the country into a period of economic growth. The comeback sent consumers on a spending spree, causing the stock market to surge. President Ronald Reagan took office following Jimmy Carter in 1981 and returned for a second term in 1984, which ended in 1989 when George Bush took office. Reagan's economic policies, which he promoted during his presidency, were nicknamed Reaganomics and are often referred to as trickle-down economics. 1980 was a historic decade of many new styles, advancements, and just plain fun. It is unique to every decade that came before and after it, and without it, the United States would not be the country it is today.